Hi, my name is Eric Jensen. I'm going to be presenting here about the indicators framework for the UNESCO recommendation on science and scientific researchers. So I'll start by briefly introducing my background. So my name is Eric Jensen. I'm a senior research fellow at ICoRSA, which is the International Consortium of Research Staff Associations, and is a partner on these European Union funded projects that you see listed here. My background is a mix of different social sciences, starting in communication in the United States at Portland State University, and then I moved to the UK to finish my postgraduate studies in sociology at the University of Cambridge. And I primarily publish in the areas of public understanding of science, public engagement, and social responsibility of science, looking at the empirical and evaluation dimensions. And this is an area I publish in mostly in recently in natural science journals, but also in social science journals in this field, like Public Understanding of Science, for example. And I've worked as an evaluation consultant and trainer for a lot of different institutions, primarily in Europe, but also in all around the world, supporting different institutions to develop evaluation frameworks and specific indicators that they can use to evaluate their work, and especially to evaluate impact and change over time. So that's included universities, museums, as well as scientific institutions like the European Space Agency. So here I'm going to be presenting on the indicators framework for the UNESCO recommendation on science and scientific researchers. Within this framework, there are 10 key priority areas that have been defined for the focus of the monitoring and evaluation and the implementation of the recommendation. The RING project is supporting the recommendation and helping to enable its effective implementation, in part because it connects to the primary focus of the RING project, which is about social responsibility of science. And our contribution is to focus on the indicators frameworks that can be mobilized to understand progress towards more integration and implementation of the recommendation. So we're going to be drawing in this indicators framework, and we are, this is already well underway. We're drawing upon methodological work that we've done in the RING project and in the GRRIP project, which is another of these EU-funded projects focusing on social responsibility of science. So we've conducted a global study of social responsible scientific practices, and also evaluation framework for evaluating progress towards greater social responsibility of science in the context of specific research performing organizations. So that's been in the GRRIP project. So in addition to our own methodological work that we've been doing over the last years, we're also drawing in previous evaluation instruments that have been developed, previous measurement that's already been done in this general domain of social responsibility of science, but particularly where it contributes to measurement against the 10 key priority areas for the recommendation. So the framework, the indicators framework being developed within the RING project, provides a kind of ready-to-use toolkit. In some cases, this toolkit connects to data that has already been collected in the relevant period for reporting in this round for the recommendation. In other cases, it's providing survey instruments that can be used for reporting against the UNESCO recommendation key priority areas. So the RING project is looking at 5 different levels of measurement in the framework that we've developed. So in this framework, we're looking at how the recommendation and how the kind of principles enshrined in the recommendation are cascading from the national policy level, so from the member state level, all the way down to the level of individual researchers and even to the level of general public opinion. And so each of these levels is covered in the indicators framework. And the idea is that this provides a toolkit, a set of resources that member states can draw upon in order to address the 10 key priority areas. And we're expecting that they will draw on different aspects of this toolkit. So it will be unlikely that many member states will use all questions through all levels of measurement, but we're providing a kind of a range of measurement options for reporting on progress in the recommendation. And then this will be supplemented by other sources of data that individual countries, individual member states have available. So just to take you through the different levels of measurement that the framework is addressing, we have the member state level, which in a lot of cases will be national reporting. In some cases, the kind of coverage of public policy around science and scientific researchers is kind of devolved to the regional government level or to the state level. And in those cases, this reporting should also take place at those levels. But in most cases, it will be representatives for the member state that are presenting objective statistics, providing links to relevant legislation and policies in order to document what kind of compliance there is with the principles in the recommendation. The next level down is research funding organizations. So this would be research councils. In the US would be the National Science Foundation, would be a kind of classic example of a research funding organization, the NIH, etc. So these research funding organizations are taking general principles that are in legislation, in public policy, and they're putting them a step closer to practice by including them in funding priorities. And so this is a key area to look for how the recommendation and how the principles in the recommendation are translating into policy and practice. The next level down is research performing organizations. And research performing organizations also are kind of key point where we can see how legislation, how public policy is making its way into practice on the ground that affects researchers, scientific researchers, and how they do their work. Then there's the level of individual researchers, and individual researchers also have a kind of important vantage point here where they can say not just what's been kind of put into place officially, but what does this actually feel like on the ground? How do people see the recommendation and the principles in the recommendation translating into the kind of culture and norms and the feeling of what it's like to be a researcher? Do you see scientific freedom, for example, at that level of being an individual researcher, even if it's technically included in formal legislation and policy? And then there's the level of public opinion, of general public views about different aspects of the recommendation. And so some of the aspects of the recommendation touch on public perspectives in a more direct way than others. So this plays a bigger role, for example, in the key area number 2, which is about the kind of relationship between science and society, but less of a role in other areas. So the idea is that across these 5 different levels, we can see the kind of full picture from the kind of top-down perspective of government policy down to the bottom-up perspective of general public views about research, about scientific researchers, and about research profession, research as a profession. And then also the perspective of researchers and research performing organizations. Together we get a kind of clear picture of how are things going across the different principles that are in the recommendation.